Alrighty, it is time for another Real Monsters. I'm your host, SK Barrett, and joining me, as always, the lovely and talented Wess Haubrich.
Oh, lovely. Just like that laugh, huh?
Yeah.
Oh, so endearing.
Oh my God, do we have a show tonight? Holy fucking God, these guys tonight are wow,
Yeah.
wow.
Kicking off a two-part episode
Yeah,
as well.
two part, two part.
So we got a lot to cover in terms of deadly duos, most definitely.
Definitely. And, we kind of thought at first we would be able to fit this into one show, but it just turned out to be too big for one show. It's overflowing.
Yeah. Yeah, most definitely. With this one in terms of the bizarre, and then with next week's, it's going to be in terms of sheer body count, I think.
Well, and audacity and fucking creepiness.
Yes.
Well, I mean, it's a toss up on who's the creepier pair
Yeah,
right now. Maybe we'll have a poll at the end.
it's not a bad idea. Most definitely.
But first, this week in crime history.
Dun dun dun. Sound effect. Um, let's see. Starting June 1st, 1942, Warsaw's newspaper, the Liberty Brigade, is the first public newspaper to tell the world about the Nazi death camps in Poland.
What year was that? I thought you said
June 1st, 1942.
42. For some reason, I thought I heard 32, and that would have been really weird because they didn't
Yeah.
exist yet.
Yep, it'd be about a year off, but 20 years to the day, June 1st, 1962, Adolf Eichmann is hung in Israel for his war crimes.
And it couldn't have happened to a nicer man.
Not at all, man. He deserved it.
Yeah.
Uh,
It's
June
quite a
1st,
quite a tale,
oh,
by the
go
way.
ahead.
Quite a tale, by the way. One of the first operations by the Mossad.
Oh, yeah, that's right. They went
Yeah,
after quite a few Nazis,
quite a
not
few.
just Eichmann.
Yeah, quite a
I can't
few.
remember who else, but
They
June
well, yeah.
1st,
Go ahead.
1990.
90.
Oh, um, actually, one that we did, what, 2 or 3 weeks ago? Eileen Warnos.
Oh yeah.
Her second victim, David Spears, is found with 6 bullet wounds in him.
Whoa.
So,
That'll ruin your
yeah.
day.
Um, yeah, it definitely will. But
You
here's one I,
know, he, poor guy, thought he was gonna have a good time, and he really didn't.
yeah, he got screwed in a way that was not intended when he picked her up. Definitely. But here's one I thought you would like, SK. June
Yeah.
2nd, 1972, DB Cooper hijacking.
DB Cooper.
Yep.
I was probably within 2,000 feet of him when either he took off or landed because the planes flew right the fuck over my house. Of course,
Wow.
because we didn't know that was going on.
Mm-mm.
until later, but he would have had to have flown over my house.
Now, he was never caught, is that right?
Never caught. There are competing theories on the final disposition of him. Some people think they have identified exactly who he was. I think the official FBI account, well, they closed it as unsolved, by the way.
Oh, wow.
Yeah,
Dang, because he
one of the
also
very
got
few.
away with, how much money was it? Was it 200,000
One
that
hundred
he got away
thousand.
with?
100,000,
Okay,
which was a
100.
hell of a lot of money in those days.
Yeah, in 1972, that definitely would be.
Yeah. The
Um,
only unsolved hijacking in U.S. history.
Dang. Phew. June 2nd, 1997, Oklahoma City bombing. Timothy McVeigh is convicted on 15 counts of murder. That seemed low to me.
How?
So what was that when we were looking
15?
at Nichols? Yeah, 15 seems way low.
Way low.
I'm not sure why it was just that, because Nichols was what, like 161
Mm-hmm.
when we looked at him last week?
Absolutely.
Dang. Um, June 3rd, 1961, Clarence Gideon is arrested for breaking into a bar in Florida. This actually leads to Gideon v. Wainwright at the Supreme Court, which established the principle that every suspect, no matter how much money he has, is entitled to a lawyer during questioning.
Ah.
So,
And that was just in the 61?
yeah, that seems
That
way
seems way
late
that
for
seems
that.
kind of late in the game for that decision to be made. It should have.
Really does. I mean, one would think that that was totally clear, but I guess not. I guess it required a little bit of precedent to crystallize the Bill of Rights there and the right to
Yeah.
being represented. Definitely. June 3rd, 1989, Tiananmen Square.
Oh, yes.
Mm-hmm.
And the great whitewash.
Yep.
Eh,
Yep.
with a very complicit, very, very complicit Western press.
Oh, absolutely. I mean, you couldn't really ask for a better shot than the guy standing in front of the tank.
Yeah, and he wasn't the only one who was murdered that day.
No.
He was just the most photogenic, I guess.
Yep. Yep. Oh, I skipped one. June 3rd, 1961, Andy Warhol is shot by artist Valerie Solanas, and she was the leader of SCUM, and you're going to love this, the Society for Cutting Up Men.
But she shot
Literally.
him.
Yeah. Yep. It was a bad wound, but he did recover.
I didn't think he
So,
died of that.
oh,
No.
no. No, I'm pretty sure he did recover, but yes, SCUM. I don't know if she had some other beef with Warhol or
Hmm.
what have you, but
She didn't get
um,
one of his cereal box pieces.
nope. Nope, maybe she wanted that Campbell soup can. Who knows?
Yeah.
Um, let's see. June 3rd, 2011, Dr. Jack Kevorkian dies.
Did somebody help him?
You know, I, I don't think so, but
Well, sure.
um,
It's fine for others, but not for him.
oh, and actually getting into our entry for tonight, June 4th, 1985, Charles Ng and Leonard Lake's hostage bunker is unearthed. We'll get into more of
We'll
that
get into
later.
that because those guys are coming right up.
June 5th, 1968, Robert Kennedy is assassinated, dying the next day. You
Yeah.
know, when I had to stay in hospital, I actually read the book that was written by his coroner, and this guy he also did the Manson scene. He Natalie Wood was another one that he was at, and Marilyn Monroe.
Oh,
He
yeah,
said
yeah.
that he actually believed in the conspiracy theories surrounding RFK, that there was more than one shooter,
Really?
and that what he saw would add some credence to that. So, And he's not one.
That's interesting.
He's not one that was prone to that sort of thinking either. Like with Marilyn Monroe, he
Yeah.
spent a huge section of that book just tearing apart the various conspiracy theories about her dying.
What about Natalie Wood? There were a lot of rumors around that too.
There was. That one, I don't think he saw anything much beyond the drowning. I
Yeah.
mean, of course, she had like Christopher Walken on that boat that night too, but.
I didn't know that.
Oh, you didn't? Yeah, he was
No.
on the boat. Yep.
Well, the
Walken
plot
was one of them.
thickens. I mean,
Yep.
it's walking for fuck's sakes. How can you not?
Pretty much there. I would have to reread that section though. I don't remember it like I do the Manson one and the Marilyn Monroe one. Like with the Manson one, he called it an orgy of blood. I'll never forget that
Mm,
quote when he walked in there. But we'll be covering that more on August the 8th on the 50th
absolutely.
anniversary of it.
And maybe and also sooner, but
Yep.
that remains to be seen.
If we are working on that part, we will update as warranted. Um, let's see. June 4th, 2009, David Carradine is found dead. Autoerotic
Yeah.
asphyxia.
Brought that whole term into the public consciousness
He really
single-handedly,
did.
so to speak.
He really did. Let's see. June 5th, yeah, we got that. June 5th, 2002, Elizabeth Smart is kidnapped,
Mm.
later to be released in 2003 when they, I believe, caught the guy. And, oh, and our last entry, June 6th, 2012, vampires found in Bulgaria. They excavated two
What?
skeletons that were nailed into the ground because they thought they were vampires.
Whoa.
Various other ways that they would keep them under. I'm sure Kelly actually knows quite a bit about how they would do that,
Right?
considering her specialization, um, Middle Ages.
Yeah.
But that is what I have for this week in crime.
There you go. Awesome. Well done. Very interesting shit going. You know what? People just seem to do a lot of fucking crime.
They do. They definitely do. And we didn't even get back much into the Middle Ages with all that.
No, not really.
Just
And
kept it modern.
you know, a case might even be made for including D-Day on that list.
Oh yeah. Well, you definitely could. And for those who maybe didn't know, 75th anniversary of Operation Overlord or D-Day,
Yeah.
which got the Allies on the European continent and ultimately on their way to Berlin.
Okay. All right. So, once upon a time,
Oh.
June 2nd, 1985, to set the stage, in
Yeah.
San Francisco, right?
San Francisco.
What happened?
San Francisco, California. I believe that was what ultimately set all this off when you
Yep.
had two men who visited a lumber store,
Yeah.
seemingly inconspicuous. They had been going there for months beforehand, buying whatever they needed, lumber, tools, nails. The proprietor was not totally sure what they were building, but he didn't think much of them until one of his employees chased one of the men out the door for shoplifting.
Yeah.
And
Wasn't one of the things they stole like this giant bench vise? Some
it
big
was.
fucking heavy thing. I mean, it's like you can't stick this fucker under your coat, man.
No, not at all. He literally was running out the door with it, and I believe I included a picture of it with the ones that I sent.
Oh, I missed that one. Let me I gotta go get that. I'll have it up shortly.
Okay, yeah, we can always come back to that. Mr. Deadman's asking a couple of questions. Which duo was the most brutal? Which was the most methodological? I believe we'll have both of those questions answered by the time we get close to the end of both. But um, yeah, this guy stole a bench vise and a couple other things and was running out the door and ultimately got beyond the reach of the employee that chased after him. Meanwhile, the other fellow, a pretty regular looking white guy with a beard and a bald head, was standing in there talking to the proprietor, saying, "No, don't worry about my friend who ran out the door. It's a misunderstanding. I'll pay for everything."
Hmm.
But the proprietor did not allow that. It did not. It didn't work. He said, "No, I'm calling the cops. Then we're going to take care of this."
Right.
So they keep going, and the cops ultimately get there while the other guy, I believe, has disappeared. But they get to looking at this white fellow who is still standing there. They look at his driver's license, and it does not look like him. You can tell that it's faked. I mean, this was the 80s, so it had pictures on it, but
Right.
it just wasn't a good representation of him. So they go out, and I would think that would give them probable cause to search his car.
I my impression was that the trunk was fucking open, right? With the
Uh,
damn vice sitting right there.
Well, yeah, that too. The trunk of his car was open, and it didn't just have the vise in there. He had automatic weapons, and one of them had a silencer. Always illegal in the state of California.
Jesus.
There's the vise. That is the bench vise. And if you can picture it, the guy who ran off with it, I don't think I gave his description, was a rather demure, just small, and you wouldn't notice him in any other setting, Asian guy.
Hmm.
Picture him running down the street with that.
Half his weight.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean the guy's maybe 5'4" if you're lucky.
Yeah.
Um but yeah, that ultimately with the silencer inside his car was something that the cops couldn't look.
Past.
They could not discount that if they wanted to. So they arrest him, they take him to the local lockup and book him.
Yeah. Sounds pretty ordinary. Just an ordinary day, arresting shoplifters. Right? The
Yep.
end of the story right there.
Oh, not yet. This is the
No?
opening of a much larger Pandora's box.
Ugh.
Definitely. So they get him there, and the white guy with the beard and the bald head asks for a glass of water, a pencil, and pad. And they don't think anything of this. He says he wants to write a note to his wife. So they get him everything. He throws something in his mouth, drinks it, and writes what they found to be a suicide note. The fellow in question inside the police department had taken a cyanide capsule, which ultimately put him in a coma.
And eventually died.
Yeah,
Yeah.
eventually they just took him off life support. There was nothing they could do.
Yeah.
But
So, cyanide capsules, I'm gonna guess, are not the typical response to being arrested for shoplifting.
no,
I can't
no.
think of other cases where, oh, you caught me shoplifting. I'm gonna take my poison pill.
Exactly. And even when you factor in the felony of carrying the automatic weapon with the
Right,
silencer in
right,
there,
right.
that's not something that many people do, but come to find
It's
out the
really
fellow they
not.
had in there was terrified of going to jail.
And why would that be?
he had he had spent some prior time in there, and
Oh, he was familiar with it.
yes. And I think when you factor in his mental state, you could see a lot of that too. So the guy in question that we're talking about was named Leonard Lake,
Okay.
the man who took the cyanide pill. And we'll be looking much, much deeper into him here, but he was a former Marine. Um, he actually fought in Vietnam,
Okay.
and his childhood was, to my understanding, his mother was very sexually promiscuous around him inside their home. And
Right.
this ultimately, the psychologist that I listened to on this, I thought put it very well when she says this causes anxiety within them because you have sex that they're attracted to, but then they're also repulsed by, and
Right.
yet it stays in their brain and it compels them. It's what their thoughts are almost always locked on. And this, in lesser degrees, she was arguing, also is how fetishes are formed because it's a forbidden object
Ah.
at some level.
So
Uh,
so there's attraction and repulsion. You have the tension of that all the time.
yes, exactly. But yeah,
And
this. Oh,
go
go
ahead.
ahead.
No, you go. No, you go.
But yeah, they weren't totally sure on why he took this cyanide pill until the cops got to looking at the car. And
Ah.
the car had a VIN number that belonged to one man, who we have a picture of, Paul Cosner, and then you had the license plate, which belonged to another man. And
And,
this,
and then in the car, was there not a um like a power the bill like an electric bill that belonged to another person? Or
that
am I mixing up cases now?
no, that was actually jumping ahead somewhat
Okay.
with the electric bill, but yeah, they found this out, and they found out that both of these guys are in the San Francisco missing persons file. That they're both missing persons cases that are wide open. So
So now you got shoplifting. Now you got a stolen car probably. You've got two missing people.
yeah, and you can infer from that, but yeah, it was just after that, come to think of it, where they did find that bill which led them to an address in rural California at the feet of the San Andreas Mountains,
Okay.
or the Sierra Nevadas.
Sierras.
I'm
Yeah.
getting my mountains mixed up there, but they go out to this house and they find a woman there. Turns out it is the wife of Leonard Lake.
Current wife or ex-wife? I was never really clear on that.
It was current up until he got into trouble after leaving the Marines when he was trying to sell guns. Yeah. And so he ran from that and was living the life of a fugitive. And his wife did not want to do that. So she takes off and says, okay, I'm going to divorce you and I'm going to my parents, but you can stay at this house in the woods at the feet of the mountains.
Hmm.
So that house is ultimately where the police end up.
Okay.
They ask her, can we look around there? She's the property owner. She can give them permission. They do. And ultimately, what did they find there, SK?
Yeah. They find a bunker. He called it a
Yeah.
bomb shelter. And she didn't want the police to look in there at first. I mean,
Yeah.
she actually declined to give them permission to look in there on their initial search.
I think it's when she got an idea of what they were looking for that she declined it. Yeah.
Yeah.
Because she started by letting them in. Um, so,
And but there was things found around the house. What I can't remember what they found at the house that got them the warrant.
They found some video equipment was part of
Oh,
it
that was it. That was it. Video equipment. Man, oh
that
man.
belonged, yeah,
Yeah, that belonged to a family that was also on the missing list.
yes. We're talking
An entire
toddler,
family.
a toddler, wife and husband, a young couple who
Eh,
this belonged to.
right. And the husband had put a camcorder, an old VHS giant motherfucking video camera. Because remember, this is 82.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Well,
and
this is that
uh,
would be 84,
80,
85 when they were
84,
in there,
85.
but yeah,
Yeah, okay.
point still stands. Yeah.
Um, er, so the husband had put this camera and some other equipment for sale. He'd put a classified ad because there wasn't Craigslist or anything like that,
Hmm.
and then the whole family disappeared.
All three of them.
But
Up.
but the husband, he must have been German or something because he kept meticulous records, including serial numbers.
He did.
And they matched the serial numbers of the camcorder to the serial number of the camera that was being sold by this family that was missing.
Yeah. And they come to find out as well with the car that it's tied to that guy, but and
Yeah,
then the driver's license as well was tied to a separate man. The driver's license that Lake had initially showed to the cops when they asked who he was. Um,
right.
there was quite a few of these things around in this bunker in this house in the woods, and meanwhile the questions are really stacking up and the answers are going nowhere because you got a motherfucker in a coma.
Right. And a accomplice they can't find.
On the run. Yep.
Yeah.
They never did catch him when he ran away with the vice, but they got a bit of a description,
Yep.
and we can get into that later. But getting into the actual bunker, once they get far
Mm.
enough, they find a 3 by 7 cell. No
Hidden.
windows. Yeah, hidden, no windows, with basically just a bucket to do your business in, a roll of toilet paper, and a sheet of plywood that they figured was being used as a bed.
Wow.
So, but then getting into the
Sounds like an
videos that they also
sounds like an
found.
apartment I used to live in.
Ugh.
You know, when you're young, you get what you can get, right?
Oh, absolutely.
But I
But
volunteered for that, and
yeah, you weren't
that makes all the difference.
you weren't taken against your will and put in there, so
No,
that's good.
no.
But what about the videos they found there with the video equipment?
Oh my God, right?
Yeah.
So they find tapes, videotapes, and they look like movies. Regular old movies. But they take them back to the police headquarters
For
and for
analysis. Remember,
analysis.
this is 1980s quality on them.
Right. VHS, right? And they assign some, desk sergeant to review these tapes. And one of them's like near the end. So he starts rewinding it. But instead of just, you remember the old VHS VCRs where you could stop the tape and hit rewind and the screen would just go black. Or
Hmm.
if you hit and held down the rewind button while it was playing, you'd get that kind of scrambled image. while
You
it
would.
kind of played back at super fast speed. And that's for some reason that nobody understands, even the guy who did it. That's what he did. He held down the rewind button and started rewinding this tape, and the movie vanishes. The pre-recorded movie vanishes, and a home movie shows up, and that's when
Hmm.
everything changed because on this tape, this was an honest to fucking god snuff tape. Now,
Yeah.
now I had read many times people saying snuff tapes are an urban legend, snuff films.
Hmm.
And this is a case where that's not true. These guys taped their captives.
They did.
They taped
In the
them. They taped doing all kinds of shit to them.
Yeah.
And
And
I mean, but here one of the important things about it is they never filmed themselves doing the things. I mean, in a way that they could be identified. So no, their faces were never on the camera,
you could hear their voices,
right?
but their faces, no. You could not identify them that way. But another part of these tapes that were also in the possession of investigators that they were looking at was our man in the coma, Leonard Lake,
Yeah.
explaining a few things.
Oh yeah. Yeah. So I am going to read a transcript that this is how he introduced one of his videos, which is brings up an interesting question. Is like, who is he talking to
Hmm.
in this introduction? Because his buddy is he doesn't need a introduction to the video. He's in them for fuck's sakes. He helps make them.
Exactly.
So who the hell is he talking to? Is he selling these? Could be. We don't
You
have
know,
any.
I think
We don't have
in
any
huge
evidence of that, but
part, I think in huge part with that, the tapes where he's just sitting there are all about his narcissism.
hmm,
You can't really see on fuller display it, most anywhere the pathology of somebody like Leonard Lake when he's just sitting there saying what he's trying to do.
yeah.
But we'll definitely hear that when you want to get into the
All right.
transcript.
I think I'll just read that now
Perfect.
because there's nothing better than his own words. He says, "Good evening. It's a Sunday in October, 27th, 28th, something like that, close to my 38th birthday. I'm starting this tape without script or without any realization of what I want to say, but I do feel a need to explain. What I want is an off the shelf sex partner. I want to be able to use a woman whenever and however I want. And when I'm tired or bored or not interested, I simply want to put her away. Lock her up in a little room, get her out of my sight, out of my life. That's it. There's no other way around it. Primarily a sexual slave, but nonetheless a physical slave as well. I believe if I can construct a holding cell, a place where I can put such a woman, a facility that is so stark and so empty and so cold, so quiet, so totally removed from the world, that I can quickly condition a young woman to cooperate with me fully. I mean, Jesus.
Yeah. My apologies on the couple of typos I'm noticing with that on the screen. I prepared this transcript and I did it pretty quick before we went on air
It's
tonight.
oh, don't worry about the typos. The content is, is devastating. This
Yeah,
is, I mean, this says so much about this man. Um, and
it does.
I mean, he wants a living, breathing object, right?
Literally. Literally, yeah. And he literally says that.
Yeah. I mean,
Would
you couldn't want this from a dog.
I
Dogs have more will than what he's hoping to achieve.
I was going to
Oh, I lost you for a second.
hear me?
Now you're back
There we go. Would you like me to put that link in the chat
to
if
the
people want to see the video?
yeah. So this Wes is going to put a link in the chat to the actual video that came from. It's age restricted and properly so. Um, and
After a minute 17 is when you see it start to get violent, where,
yeah.
if you will be triggered by that, you might want to turn it off. Up to that point, it is just him talking, where I put edit in brackets throughout there is where the video actual frame gets edited to a different position. And I couldn't be sure while watching that
Hmm.
whether that was Lake who edited that part of it or it's whoever put that video up.
Yeah, I'm not sure. It's not clear at all. The entire
Yeah,
thing is edited together. Um,
so I
it's
thought might note that. Yeah,
it's a chilling video, but it's not gruesome. Let's just be clear about that.
yeah.
Um, but
It's
the
very
way,
psychological
yes,
what they're
yes,
doing.
that good way to put it. Um,
Um,
yeah, I mean, it's not. You're not going to see anybody stabbed or shot or beaten even. Um,
right.
but oh my God, the the to realize that you're seeing some of the last moments of human life
Exactly.
on video is breathtaking, and not a good way.
It really is. And I was just thinking with that, do we have the text of his rules that he
Yes,
typed to
we
give them?
do.
We should show that as well. But
Um,
this shows the level of control that Lake was after. It's really the hallmark of narcissism to have this level of control.
all right, I'm not sure which one is. Here's a quote from him. This goes well with the transcript, and then I'll put up the rules. God meant women for cooking, cleaning, house, and sex. When they are not in use, they should be locked up. Ah,
Yeah,
I mean, wow. The
yeah,
the
that's
the thing about this quote and the intro to the video is that there's no saying that he intends to, torture and murder, and yet that's kind of bound up in his entire attitude because
mm-hmm.
it's just going to end up that's just like the end of that path that this is talking about.
Yeah, and ultimately because I think a big part of the murder there was when they would not obey by his rules.
Yes.
He saw no other way of handling it
And,
besides violence.
and so here are the rules. This is an actual photograph, so it's a little blurry. I must always be ready, and this is the rules for the captives, not just his, but their
That
captives.
they were literally typewritten and put in the cell.
Yeah, so they
Hmm.
could always see them. I must always be ready to service my master. I must be clean, brushed, and made up with my cell neat. I must never speak unless spoken to. Unless in bed, I must never look my master in the eye, but must keep my eyes downcast. I must never show my disrespect, either verbally or silent. I must never cross my arms or legs in front of my body or clench my fists, and unless eating, must always keep my is that legs parted?
Yes.
Lips parted.
Oh,
Weird.
yeah.
I must be obedient completely and in all things. I must obey immediately and without question or comment. I must always be quiet when locked in my cell. I must remember and obey any additional rules told to me. I must understand that any disobedience, any pain, trouble, or
Or annoyance.
annoyance caused by me to my master will be grounds for punishment. Wow.
It's an insane level of control. Now, one thing I'm not sure how much it fits into Lake's overall psychology by this point, but when he was a Marine in Vietnam, they actually labeled him a schizophrenic.
Really?
Yeah, it was something weird though. It wasn't like a finalized diagnosis of it. It was like emergent schizophrenia, like they saw something happening.
Oh, I see. So he was trending towards it kind of thing?
Yeah, yeah. I'm
Interesting.
trying to remember how exactly they put it, but
That kind of would be the right age for it to start showing up.
yeah, and you figure he was what in his 20s
Right.
maximum.
That's often when it begins to appear. Um, wow. I mean,
Uh, yeah,
this guy just kind of just takes your just makes you just go blank with s- just being stunned by the audacity of this and the brutality of it. Um,
yeah. But then, how does Charles Ng, his buddy, fit in?
that's a good
That's one thing
question.
we haven't really talked about. And
How did he get caught?
Aang ultimately got caught. Well, he was running, as we said at the
Right.
beginning,
Right.
with the shoplifting. He flew to Chicago, where he had friends, contacts, something like that. The FBI followed, and from there, they figured he went to Canada,
Mm,
where he had relatives in both Calgary and Toronto. But they caught him up there, and it was a very long ordeal to get him transported and extradited to California to face his
right.
crimes because the Canadians won't allow that if the person is facing the death penalty. And
Ah,
Aang took
yeah.
advantage of that. And,
Drug his heels as much as possible.
right. He studied American law when he was incarcerated up there in Canada, but ultimately they let him go back to the United States. They extradited him because they realized it would set a precedent up there of a lot more killers fleeing to Canada if they didn't do that.
Right. Let's just boogie up to Canada. They won't extradite us.
Yeah, but
Probably not what they're trying to accomplish up there.
with all the haranguing and everything there, it wasn't until 1999 when Eng was charged.
Whoa.
Yep.
So that's like 14, 15 years.
Yeah.
That's a long time. Okay.
Oh,
So
yep.
he gets charged, he goes to trial, and I'm guessing he gets convicted.
He did. He, I'm trying to remember if it was life or if it was death, whether
It
California had it at the time.
I believe it was death, but then the law got changed.
Okay.
And in fact, if I'm remembering correctly, it was the fastest death verdict in California history.
Yeah, if you were to take out his doing everything he can to
No, but
make it drag
I
on.
mean for the time that the jury deliberated.
Oh, okay. Yeah. Yep, he is still sitting on in life in prison right now.
I believe the jury deliberated something like 90 minutes, which is
Oh, wow.
astonishing on a death verdict.
It really is. But, I think it's even more astonishing when you get into looking at the psychology of how these two made a duo.
How did they get started? I mean, that's a really good question, right? Let's look at
Aang
that.
was also in the military. He was also, I think, a Marine.
Okay.
And he got out doing some other criminal scheme, not unlike how Lake got out, was selling the guns, hiding out from the law. But,
Okay.
once you get down to it, though, this was almost a classic bully and victim
Really?
setup. So
Between
you look at Ing's childhood in China.
so
Yeah,
unlike the pair we're going to talk about next, who were lovers.
yeah. This was a non-sexual relationship,
Okay.
Ing and Lake. It was more of bully and victim. I don't know if you'd have some masochism going on there or what, but the theory was that Eng was doing a lot to relive his victimization as a child by his abusive father.
Oh, okay.
And I guess doing what he can to take control of that in a weird way, to relive it and master it
I
in
see.
the way that people do.
That seems weird to me. I, you know, I can't think of, really bad experiences that I've wanted to, you know, have happen over again. But I guess some people do.
Some people like pain.
Yeah.
And that's, what led to that. And, it almost, when you look at the shoplifting that ultimately got them both caught,
Right.
it's almost an example of that to me. Like Ing is in there and he's looking at it and he thinks, oh, the bully, he really wants this. I'm gonna take it
Hmm.
and just run with it. And the bully's gonna like me. I'll get in his favor that way when we do our stuff and get closer with him. Because it's a totally irrational action that got them
Right.
caught.
Right.
They didn't have to take that. There had
True.
to be something at some level that motivated Aang to do that
Oh,
and to run with it.
so here's an interesting point. There was nobody found alive when they went and searched the property.
None of them. What they found was essentially 50 pounds of bone and charred body.
I mean, so they didn't have anybody currently in the cell.
No,
Yeah. So
none at all.
they would have been hunting for somebody new at that stage.
Most likely, yeah. Yeah,
They
but they
were
ultimately
Oh,
they
go
were
ahead.
charged with 11, but they estimated there was up to 25 bodies on that land. And like I said, the bones and the corpses were so decayed and so packed together that they could not tell them apart.
And they did a really thorough job of burning the bodies
They did.
to where it was really difficult forensically to know exactly who was in these burn sites, and there were several of them.
There was. And this all ultimately led to the city constructing one gigantic grave marker for it,
Hmm.
which we have a picture of.
Yeah, I think it'll come up in a bit. I think. Um,
At 25 of them, 25 people. It's important to look at it too. They weren't just looking for women. If you look at their MO, ultimately what they were doing was shopping. They would go after men because they wanted something, like
mhm,
Paul Cosner's car,
right.
or the video equipment from the family. And then, of course, they would go for the women as Lake's sexual tastes dictated.
Yeah. Yes. So it was really about um, it's not really opportunity, but it was utilitarian.
It was. And they had that weird way of doing it. If you look at, other similar killers, which there aren't many, this dynamic is very, very, very rare,
Yeah. It's
as
it's
we'll see.
it's yeah, it's extremely rare, and we don't even know how they killed him
No, no, we don't have
because there
anything
because there was
on that.
just not any evidence left over
They
to
did,
determine that.
like you said, they did that good of a job of disposing of the bodies,
Yeah, I mean they could tell that bodies had been there that were burned there, but that's really it. They didn't know
which
who or
is,
how many.
yeah, which is quite the change from who we'll look at next week,
Hmm.
who used a huge variety of ways to kill.
Intentionally.
Yeah. And they are the one that we have the quote, a rash of homicides that makes Charles Manson look like Tom Sawyer.
Oof.
But, this that could easily be applied here too.
Yeah, these guys were so um yeah, especially Lake. I mean, just completely disconnected from any human experience. Um,
They were.
Women, everybody was a utensil to him. Just women were to serve him. They were his, walking, talking, breathing sex bots and maids, slaves. I mean, honest to God, that's what he said, slaves. That's what he wanted. Um,
Yep.
Everybody else was just a matter of convenience.
Yeah, and it's the killing, if you look at it that way, would be unintentional. Or not unintentional, but incidental.
Right, right. The killing was not the objective.
Right.
The killing was how do you wrap up this scenario with these people? Like,
How do you get rid of it when it doesn't work?
right.
Yeah,
We've we
exactly.
we've got all the video gear from this family. Well, we're done with them. Let's burn them.
Yeah. And it's where it's also important to look at Aang's individual psychology. He was not psychotic in the way that Lake was,
Yeah.
but he was, I think you could argue, very, very angry. And that is
Mm.
ultimately what you see being acted out. Because he wasn't looking for a sex bot. He was basically looking to,
Uh,
be bullied and to serve the bully.
okay. And probably, be able to bully in his turn.
Yeah,
Right.
exactly, too. Go after something that he perceives as weaker than himself
Yeah.
in the way that they do. You know, when you look at it that way, he has a very juvenile psychology about him, Charles Ang.
Right. Well, that's a thing that does emerge oftentimes with severe abuse cases is that the emotional development stops at a certain
Hmm.
point because of the abuse.
Yeah, it's arrested at a single point in time.
Yeah.
You could definitely argue that with his abusive father in China, which the way that he ultimately got over here, they wanted to send him to a school in the San Francisco Bay Area.
Okay.
So he did that, and then it didn't work out, and he signs up for the military.
Ah, the military training psychopaths since the beginning of time.
Yeah. Oh yeah.
I mean, I don't mean that completely disparaging because, if the other guy's got psychopaths, you need yours working for you.
Exactly. And that's essentially what Aang did for Lake.
Yeah.
You know, one part of that we haven't got into was his literary inspiration.
Oh, tell me about that.
That was the book. We had a picture of it.
The
The book
book.
about a butterfly collector who decides to
Oh,
kidnap a woman.
what was that? The Collector. That was the name, or the collection, right?
Yes, no, the collector, I think,
The
was
Collector.
it. And I would have to look it back up because the picture was the point of reference I was going to use when it came up.
Ah, yeah. Let's see if I can.
Fowler, I believe, was the author.
Oh, Fowles, John
Or
Fowles,
Fowles, thank you.
who is, by the way, a fantastic author, in my opinion. English. He's an English author.
Well, I wonder what that says about you now.
Well, it just never occurred to me to use his book as a how-to guide.
Are you collecting, SK?
I am not a collector. I am so not a collector.
uh, yep.
I look at people's collections and go, why? I'm the anti-collector.
Well, there you go. But he went so far as to calling the entire operation of finding a woman and making her his slave Operation Miranda, wasn't it?
Yes, Miranda, named after the main woman in the book.
Yeah, yeah, it's interesting how literature has worked into certain killers' psychologies like that. You have Lake, and then that also made me think of Zodiac with the most dangerous game.
Yeah, and Catcher in the Rye with
Oh yeah,
um,
Hinckley.
Hinckley
Or was it?
and
Wait a minute, was
others.
that Hinckley?
Yes, it was.
Yeah,
It was Hinckley and others too, I think.
I was getting it. Man, there's another one. I'm blanking on it. Mark David Chapman as well.
Oh,
That's who I was trying to
Chapman.
think
Yeah,
of.
yeah, yeah,
Yeah,
yeah.
shot John Lennon.
Lennon. He had Catcher in the Rye on him when he was arrested.
That's an acolyte, definitely.
Yeah. And who was the one who stalked Jodie Foster?
That was Hinckley, I think.
Okay.
Shot Reagan too.
Oh, right, that was the same guy. Yeah.
Yep. Yeah, Catcher in the Rye, training psychopaths since what, the late 60s?
Yeah.
Yep.
Wow, these guys, man. What a
Yeah.
bizarre story. What a completely bizarre story.
It really is. N- what we're going to look at next week is going to be, in a lot of ways, weirder and more savage. If you
Yeah.
believe the killers in that, we're looking at a total of 600 bodies.
What?
If you believe the killers we're looking at next week and how many people they killed, we're looking at 600 bodies over 26 states. If you believe the realistic assessments, it's still pretty damn high at 250.
Jesus. That's the low estimate?
Yeah. The realistic estimate is about 250.
Christ. Do you know how many Bundy killed? 12.
Yeah, nowhere near 250. But
Wow.
it's interesting with that because they also showed quite a degree of criminal versatility because
Uh,
they were not at all stingy about how they killed.
you
The
talking about
ones will,
our story next week?
yes,
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
guns, knives, strangulation, basically whatever was available. Even running them down with a car.
Yeah.
So
those guys, man. That next week, you got to be here next week because holy cow.
I guess we could just go ahead and tell them who it is.
Who's
I
it
think a
gonna
lot of
be?
people A lot of people could catch it by the numbers I just threw out, but Henry Lee Lucas and Otis Toole is who we will be looking at.
A lot of people behind bars are there because of these killers and the fallout of one in particular.
Yes.
So,
Yep.
so there's a little teaser.
One very, very famous case.
Yep.
Absolutely.
All right. Well, that's going to wrap it up for us tonight. The very, very cruel and strange stories of Lake and Ing.
Yeah. Control it control exemplified. I don't think you can see any more
Yeah.
pure control
No,
than this case.
no. Except maybe Delphenia.
Yeah, that's true.
She's kind of in that class.
Although with her, we don't exactly have the written stuff and the
Right.
video evidence because Lake also did keep a huge, huge journal for about 2 years that I don't think we mentioned.
Oh, we
But
did not. No.
we took a lot of what we talked about from there too.
All right. Good night, everybody.
Night.